Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast. My name is Don, and today we're actually going to be talking about, the overall process of Genomenon and the work that Mike Klein and the team at Genomenon have been doing. And so, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Don Davis, and I'm a consultant in life sciences. I help companies manage complexity, and increase performance. So, with that, welcome, Mike. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Don, it's a pleasure to see you again.
Yeah, thanks so much. So, just briefly, can you tell the listeners just a little bit about your background? How did you get started in tech, and how did you become a serial entrepreneur?
Sure. So my background is in engineering background. So I grew up as a computer engineer, electrical engineer. I did about 10 years in the big corporations, working for Motorola and Rockwell, and then decided to go off on my own about 30 years ago, start my first company. And so I've either led or founded four different companies, all in the software or the IT space. So genomics and life science is a new area for me when I joined Genomenon about 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
All right. And so with Rockwell, were you with Rockwell Automation Systems, or is that
Yeah,
where you're primarily
yeah,
focused?
I was
Yeah.
with Rockwell Automation doing factory automation. And so, in fact, the first company I started was called Steeplechase Software. It was a factory automation software company. So we grew that to be the market leader in its niche, and sold that in 2000 to a multi-billion-dollar French conglomerate. I went on to do a turnaround from a software security company at the University of Michigan, and then the last 10 years before I joined Genomenon, or last 8 years before I joined Genomenon, I was doing a data center company. So early days of cloud computing, five different data centers all across the Midwest. A pretty interesting business in itself.
So can you tell us a little bit more about what is Genomenon? What is it that they do?
Sure. So Genomenon is a AI-driven genomics informatics or information company. So our whole mission, our whole focus is making genomic information actionable. And if you think about what's going on in the world of precision medicine, right, we're seeing the price of next generation sequencing drop pretty dramatically. In fact, I was giving another presentation, where you show the line of Moore's law and you show how much more aggressive the prices have dropped when you look at the price of sequencing. As a result, though, you're seeing an explosion of information, explosion of research, explosion of publications. And one of the big challenges is actually turning all that data that we're creating in the world of next generation sequencing into something that's actionable. That's something that is actually what we consider to be knowledge versus just a whole bunch of data. And so our whole mission in this world is to make genomic information actionable, both to put information or that knowledge at the fingertips of clinicians in the process of diagnosing patients, as well as pharma researchers in developing precision medicine.
Very good. Yeah. And so what drove you into the life sciences world? What made you want to go from, kind of this world of automation and IT over into life sciences?
So the one connecting point is the informatics piece, the IT, the software, and underlying what we do is we are a software and a data company. So that kind of streams along the background that I've had throughout my entire career. But the genomics side came, quite frankly, when I was actually after I left my last company, I was a mentor at the University of Michigan, helping a dozen different startups. And I was approached by Mark Keel, one of our founders, our co-founders at Genomenon, and he was looking to bring on an experienced CEO into the company. And quite frankly, I didn't know a lot about genomics or even biology, right? My whole area had been on the IT side and software security. But I fell in love with the mission and the whole idea of having an impact on cancer patients and helping get them to the right diagnosis, to help diagnose and find the right treatment for babies born with rare diseases. And a lot of us, I think, many of us have been touched by cancer somewhere in their lives. For me, it was my mother who was diagnosed with breast cancer and passed away 30 years ago. And the whole promise of precision medicine to change the way that treatment is, not just a one size fits all, but actually dialing in the right therapies and the right treatments based on the genomic profile of cancer, or in the case of rare diseases, the genomic profile of those rare diseases, was a really compelling mission that went beyond just software security or moving bits around in a data center, but actually had that life-saving purpose that so many people in life sciences find. I got addicted to, right? I just signed up for that mission and got really empowered by that mission. And I get up every day just thrilled about the impact we're making in the world of Genomenon.
Yeah, it's a bug that most of us can't shake after we find it. So it's I mean, essentially, once you get that sort of hey, I can have a legitimate impact on people I know. Is kind of something that I think all of us are just drawn to overall from
Yeah,
the life sciences perspective. And
yeah,
you're right. I mean, the closer and closer we seem to get with more and more genomic data, it seems like there's more still to be found, but at the same time, who knows? Maybe someday soon, right? We have something that's a significant answer for a significant, amount of the patients that are out there, which would be phenomenal.
Well, I think that's coming from an engineering background where there was usually an answer. You could figure out an answer. There were systems and processes.
Right.
Biology is fascinating, right? There's so much more so much that we haven't understood. There's so much more to learn, and I think that's another thing that's really compelling about life sciences is if you've got the mentality of always learning, if you really want to, continue, you can live in this world for the life sciences world for the next 50 years, and you're always going to be discovering more and learning more. There's there's so much knowledge that just can't fit in one person's brain. It's pretty incredible. It really creates a team and a community effort to really move the ball forward.
Yeah. And so, what are some of the lessons that you've learned in your career that have helped shape the future of Genomenon?
Um, so first off, I think from a startup perspective, right? So when I joined Genomenon, it was truly in a pure startup mode. A lot of that was just product market fit. So, of the three key lessons that I learned, the first one would be product market fit. Knowing that you got to get out there and you got to listen to customers. You think you know what your business plan is, but you're wrong. And so, how do you get out there and figure that out, right? How do you talk to customers, really understand the need? It's not about the technology; it's about the problem that you're solving, and being able to, whether it's tweaking or pivoting, depending how drastic the change is, continuing to fine tune the product to make sure it's fitting a real need in the marketplace. And so, the first three companies that I did, or at least the first two companies that I did, a lot of it was technology driven, looking for a market. And at Genomenon, we really took a market perspective, making sure that the product, we were very agile in developing the product and making sure we had good product market fit. The second lesson I would say is timing. Timing is everything, right? If you're too early, great ideas can just die on the vine because either the technology isn't there, the market's not ready. If you're too late, you get killed because you can't get traction versus the competition. So really, I think a lot of companies in the genomic space have poured a lot of, especially in the software side, have poured a lot of cash into the business, maybe a little bit too early.
Yeah.
And really being able to titrate how you're spending that cash with that product market fit and the traction, I think is a really important aspect of growing a business in this space. And then the third is the team. So I'm from Michigan, right? And University of Michigan, the team is something they say a lot here at the University of Michigan. But building a phenomenal team, I don't think that this isn't a one person effort. This isn't like one person has it all in their head. We've just been able to at Genomenon, and I think it's a lesson learned, is just building a great team, making sure you got the right people in the right seats, all tied to that mission that we talked about, right? And going in the same direction, signed up for the same set of core values, and all building against this very, articulate goal that you know where you want to go. So critical in the startup world and in building a company to the stage that we're at now and where we're going.
Yeah, it's something that I feel like I spend a fair amount of time in working with companies that are trying to scale, talking about, do people really understand your vision and mission? Can they, if you woke them up at 1 a.m., could they tell you what the vision and mission is, or would they lose it? Would they lose it in the midst of the sleepiness? Um, and so many times, I find that founders, haven't spent that time. They just haven't spent the time to communicate it. And then they wonder why, as they've added, they move from the 10 to 20 people, or they're trying to go from 20 to, I mean, sometimes it's 250 is the story I get. And I'm like, yeah, well, there's no reason, no real mystery here as to why people are lost. I mean, I don't understand your vision and mission as an outsider, and I can tell you that your team probably doesn't either. So let's
Yeah.
start there.
And culture is that other part, right? So once you've got a really
Yeah.
clear mission and your purpose, and everybody's aligned along those lines, making sure that your core values are in place, that you define the culture. So I really screwed up in my first company. We tripled the size of the company in 6 months, and I was like, yeah, we're a startup. We don't need no stinking culture, right? That's all big
Right.
companies. Oh, wrong, right? It took me 2 years to unwind those mistakes that we made in six months.
Yeah.
Just really getting down. And so at Genomenon, we're really careful and focused on building a great culture and really being able to articulate the culture to candidates that are considering coming in. Hey, this is what we're all about, right? We're an always learning team. We're about true grit, right? We're humble confidence is another one of our core values. Just making sure that the right people understand the fit and the wrong people understand where they don't fit in, and we can
Mm-hmm.
continue that culture, because it's so hard when you're doubling the size of a company every year. It's so easy to screw things up from a culture perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like to your point, right? I mean, once you've done it, it's so hard to unwind. I mean, it can become a near impossibility, especially if you get that really sort of negative culture in place. I mean, it could take, man years to actually undo. And I don't think enough people give that credit either.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a really important aspect. And as we just raised a Series B financing, which means we're going to be fueling a lot of growth. And that's one area that I'm just dialed in on, is making sure that we don't give up on the culture as we grow the company.
Yeah, and so I mean, as you kind of see the overall runway for Genomenon, how do you see Genomenon having a lasting impact in the world then?
So Don, our mission over the next 3 years is to curate the entire genome. If you think about that bottleneck that we see in the genomic space, it's all about we're creating a ton of data, but we don't know how to, getting knowledge from that data is a very time-consuming, expensive process. So think about if you do a whole genome sequencing, right, and the thousands of variants that need to be researched, and so you quickly filter those down, but you're still sending PhDs or master's level scientists that are spending a lot of time culling through the literature, trying to find the evidence, trying to make a diagnosis based on all the scientific peer-reviewed evidence that's out there. Our view of the world, and our genomic search engine takes people to the literature, but pharma companies came back to us and said, can you start curating diseases? So tell us every variant and every gene and the pathogenicity of those genes by like ACMG or AMP guidelines. And now we've moved to the next version of that vision, which is curating the entire genome. Every gene, every variant for every disease, curated and at the fingertips of the clinicians, the fingertips of scientists, to make those decisions that much faster. So now I'm not spending my time researching the literature. I've got all that information at my fingertips to very quickly diagnose patients. And you think about the game changer that having a fully curated genome will mean to our industry, to the NGS market. Think about newborn screening and where we're going. And what is it? 120 million new babies born around the world. And if with a single heel prick, we can diagnose the 5 to 7% of those that have a rare disease and preemptively start treating them, the type of impact that we can have. Or think
Yeah.
about cancer screening. If you can understand every variant that's circulating in your bloodstream and be able to very quickly diagnose and make a diagnosis around that, it's life changing, in the way and the type of impact that we can have as we accomplish that mission.
Yeah, it's the way that I mean the guys that are studying epigenetics right now and looking at the entire biome, human biome as well, just really, kind of overall opens up this idea that, there's a lot to us in terms of biology that could impact, cancer and the future of cancer. And, you know, I, I for sure, would love to know, if somebody could tell me, hey, look, change your diet today and, it'll reduce these amounts in your body, that would be phenomenal. But at the same time, there's so much that we don't know. It's like, hey, don't drink coffee and don't drink red wine. And then tomorrow, drink coffee and drink red wine. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, diet on, diet off. I don't know. So it's
Yeah.
it is something that I definitely look forward to having a lot more information about the things that are happening. And I definitely think that, you're right in terms of the bioinformatics that and the study that goes into all of this stuff, and just the immense amounts of data that it requires to be able to actually bring something to fruition is pretty challenging. And the companies that have done it, right? I mean, there are companies that are, for sure developing diagnostics in in these areas, but at the same time, having more and more information will be helpful.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing happen in the next generation sequencing marketplace is very similar to what we've seen. I certainly saw this in factory automation. You could see this in even Netflix, for example, at the consumer level, where they spent years and years and years building out the platform. And today we don't talk about the Netflix platform at all, right? What does everybody talk about? Content. It's content, content, content.
Right.
And so, I think we're going to see that same transition happen as we've got, very solid platforms in place. There's a lot of players playing in the reagent space. We're creating a ton of data, but making sense of that data, that knowledge base, I think is really where this industry is turning to and will evolve where, knowledge will be king, content will be king as we look at this space over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, we even saw that in terms of COVID. I mean, a lot of the drug companies, if you look inside of them today, they went and bought, data catalog software and things like that, so they could curate the information that they have. It's a similar sort of challenge. They just, they've created, lots and lots of amounts of data that they want to be able to get their hands on pretty quickly as well. And one of the things that I know I've seen is that, they've figured out a way to get, better ways to mark their data and make sure that they can, tag and get back to the information that they have on hand, so that when the next, pandemic comes, they can react a heck of a lot faster as well.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, in terms of your entrepreneurial experience, I want to dive into that a little bit. So, is there any advice that you would give somebody that was just a new entrepreneur in the space? What would you sort of give them in terms of guiding advice?
Um, yeah, I think yes. So there's a couple things I would tell brand new entrepreneurs is number one, your business plan is wrong. So just accept that fact, right? And don't be bothered by it. You need to have a thesis. You need to have a theory of where you're going, but you need to be agile and be able to react. Think about skiing the moguls blindfolded, right? You got to be able to react to what's coming at you and be able to keep your knees bent and figure that out as you're going down the hill. And that product market fit was a great example of what I was talking about. Is making sure that you really understand what your customers want, that you're listening to them, and that you're crafting your business plan around the feedback that you're getting. You got to start somewhere. You got to have a plan. And I think if you accept from from the very beginning that your plan is wrong, it makes it a lot easier to adapt it rather than just say, I got this all figured out. 100%, I'm right. I know exactly where this is going to go. Not that easy. Not that easy.
If you could rewind the clock, right? So overall, in terms of thinking about this space within life sciences, is there any sort of advice that you would give somebody that maybe currently outside of the life sciences industry, considering something in the life sciences, in terms of considering a career here?
Yeah, if I could rewind the clock, I think I would have gotten into life sciences a lot sooner. And I think that comes back down to that purpose, that mission that you and I talked about earlier, is, just the ability to have an impact at just a whole nother level than you can have in, for example, software security or, running data centers, all of which we need. We need people to do that. But the impact that you can have and the life-changing impact you can have is really an exciting place to get to be. And I think the other side is that if you're the type of person that is always learning and you're always, you want to absorb more, you're not going to run out of things to learn in the life sciences space, right?
Right.
There's always something new, right? It's not like, okay, I got this figured out. It's another data center, it's another computer, it's another network. There's just so much evolving here that I think it's a really exciting space to be in. And even in genomics, we're still in the very early innings. There's so much innovation and discovery and invention that's going to happen here over the next 30 years that you're not going to run out of headroom on your career if you're jumping into the genomic space.
I mean, the other thing that I oftentimes tell people as well is that if you like working around brilliant people, I mean, there are a lot of them in this space. I mean, I don't include myself in that at all in that realm. I definitely look at some of the stuff that we've done where, they'll take the COVID vaccine's a good example. They'll take, one virus that's not, contagious to humans, essentially tell it, hey, look, go hunt this and then go kill it. And that instruction being in your body now all of a sudden is something that your body can interpret and say, oh, okay, so this is something that I should fight off. And I mean, it's just amazing to me that people are, in this space are just so brilliant as well.
That's one of our core values at Genomenon is humble confidence, and I think it's because of that. Because there are just, it's important to know what you know, be confident about what you know, but it's also important to know what you don't know, because there are so many people in the life sciences space that know so much, and collectively you can put together much better solutions and come up with and solve much bigger problems as a community and as a team than you can do as an individual or a small group of people. I think you're spot on with that, Don.
Fantastic. And in terms of your career, what has been your proudest moment?
I would say there's probably two things that make me, that I would say are really kind of stand out. One is just watching the team we put together at Genomenon accomplish in 5 short years what we've been able to accomplish and deliver. So, starting off 5 years ago, when we introduced first genomic search engine, and quite literally, we had a lot of people saying, talk to the hand. That's, they couldn't be, you can't do that. AI can't do that. You can't do that. It's impossible. And we got thrown out of more accounts and more places than I can even tell you, right? And going from there to having the world's leading genomic search engine and being used across, over 2,000 labs all around the world is quite fulfilling to watch the team be able to put that together and to be able to pull that off. And then redialing in with the work we've done with pharma and setting our sights on the next goal of curating the entire human genome. To me, I have every confidence in the world that this is the team that can do that. So to me, that's really rewarding to watch a team of really brilliant people come together to accomplish those goals. The other comes back to that mission, and kind of one of those things that gets me up in the morning. So very specifically, when we were working with Rady Children's Hospital, and this was 3-4 years ago, they were in the pilot stage of trying to use, and they were using Mastermind in their clinical diagnosis, and they had a baby 3 days old that was having a dozen life-threatening seizures every day. Ran them through and did the rapid whole genome sequencing to see if they could find out what the cause was. They looked in, existing manually curated databases. They found nothing. They looked in Google and Google Scholar and found nothing. And it wasn't until they went into Mastermind that they were able to connect one of those the baby's variants with a single scientific paper. And that scientific paper suggested a nutritional defect. When they supplemented the baby's diet, the seizure stopped. And this baby, his name is Fritz. They've actually been out, talking about this case now, and it's that type of impact of finding a single paper and connecting that paper with the variant for the clinician, right? We weren't doing all the heavy lifting. We were just in the background making sure that that clinician could find that paper to make that diagnosis. That's rewarding. That is really rewarding. And we're seeing that over and over again with a number of our clients and a number of our users that are able to find that needle in a haystack. And in the world of rare diseases, it is looking for needles in a haystack. And so to have the team that's been able to organize every needle in every haystack and put that at the fingertips of our users to be able to have that kind of impact is very rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, the story does sound absolutely amazing overall, and thankfully, you were there for Fritz for sure.
It's the type of thing that gets me up every morning, right? Excited to do what we're doing, and hopefully everybody on the Genomenon team is just as excited to get up every morning, put their feet on the ground, and hit the ground running to do the things that we do. And I'm sure that's true across all of life sciences, or much of life sciences, that kind of impact.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've had?
I think it's interesting because in the life sciences market, the adoption rate, we're selling to scientists, you're selling to clinicians, and by definition, scientists are skeptical. So the adoption curve is much slower than what I've seen in other markets. That talk to the hand thing is like, bullshit, it can't be done. Prove it to me. That I think is an interesting challenge in the life science market. That is a slower adoption rate than what I've seen in other places. And when you get and understand who your users are, right, and you understand that scientific bias that they have and how they really come at it from that perspective, it kind of explains that. So I think that in the early days was a significant challenge for us. And I think even as we talk about curating the genome, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there that are saying, bullshit, talk to the hand. It's not going to happen. You can't do it. And we're going to just keep chipping away at it, improving our way over the next 3 years, 5 years that we can actually do that.
And that's how it happens. I mean, it's to me, that's the way that all of this stuff, seems to happen, is that, somebody decides that regardless of no matter how many naysayers there might be, they're going to, just keep chipping away at it day after day until eventually, they're closer or maybe even there. So, yeah.
Exactly
so there are
right.
3 questions that I like to ask every guest. Mike, what inspires you?
What inspires me is the work that we're doing, the mission that we're on, the ability, quite literally, to arm clinicians and researchers with the tools and the information they need to make patients' lives better. That, like I said, that gets me up every morning. And the other thing that inspires me is the team, and watching this team of, I'm getting I'm an old entrepreneur now, right? And so I'm watching the next generation come in, and you look at the founders of Genomenon, and just the brilliance of not just the founders but the rest of the team that we put in place, and the brilliant ideas that they're bringing into bear, and the way that they're actually making all this happen. That's inspiring to watch that team come together to really accomplish the things that they're accomplishing.
Very good. And what concerns you?
What concerns me? Good question. I think we're playing in a world where there's a lot of moving pieces, right? If you think about not just the biology of things, but this market, we're still in a relatively new market. There's a lot of moves that competitors are making, that other players are making, and we're skating to where the puck is going, but the puck may not be there, right? And so that's what concerns me is paying attention to where the puck is going and making sure we're making the course adjustments, because just because we think we know the world is going to be in 5 years doesn't mean it's going to be there. It's not a straight line trajectory by any means.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the diagrams I oftentimes draw for people is, you have this sort of vertical line that goes on up on the innovation side, and then you have another vertical or horizontal line that comes out on the business process side that need to kind of grow together. Um, and if they don't have that balance, then you oftentimes wind up in kind of an odd spot, from maybe business culture or scalability and so on. But the one thing I also acknowledge is that the line for your company's execution isn't straight. It's very sort of up and down. And I mean, we have to acknowledge the fact that, the world is still going to continue to turn. And, there's all these outside influences that I certainly can't, tell you about today. I don't have a crystal ball, but yeah, that for sure can be a challenge. But at the same time, that's why you reevaluate strategy and you continue to evolve, right?
Yeah, and I think it's probably part of the fun too, right? If you enjoy the strategy part of things, just the world is unknown. It's going to come at you, and you need to be able to have a team that can react to that and be able to make good decisions and pivot around whatever information is coming at you.
Very good. Last question. What excites you?
Um, Boy, I hate to sound like I'm repeating myself, but what excites me, I think the genomics market and the way that the science is evolving, the way that the knowledge is evolving to really have an impact on lives across the board. I think that, like I said, we're in the very early innings of the genomics and next generation sequencing, and the way that precision medicine is going to have an impact across the board on, think about what the world is going to look like 10 years from now, from
Mm.
newborn screening to going in for your annual exam and getting your cancer screening through a blood test, right? Our world is going to be very different, even at a very personal level, when we think about screening for cancer. So I think that's a very exciting prospect of where this whole entire genomics market and genomics effort is going.
So with that, Mike Klein, I wanted to thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success podcast. And, I definitely look forward to continuing to watch the work at Genomenon and the work that you guys are doing. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Don. I really enjoyed the conversation.